He once lost $70 billion in a single day. And that's the largest personal financial loss in human history. And for most people, that would be the end of everything. But for him, it was the start of another chapter. And instead of disappearing into the history, he came back to build one of the most powerful and influential technology empires the world has ever seen. He is none other than Masayoshi Son. His story isn't just about money innovation, it's about obsession, risk, and the pursuit of a dream so relentlessly that everyone else thought it was a pure madness. The story begins in 1957 in Japan's Saga Prefecture, where he was born in the family of poor Korean immigrants who lived on the fringes of society. His childhood was marked by poverty and humiliation. He grew up in a small house with a tin roof and pigs in the yard, and classmates also mocked his accent and background. But even as a child, Sun dreamed on a scale that dwarfed his surroundings. At 16, he sat down and wrote his life plan. Not a vague wish list, but a blueprint for his destiny. He promised to himself to start a company by 20, make $10 million by 30, risk it all by 40, and build a $1 trillion empire by 50. And that was his agenda of the life. And that level of clarity and self belief at 16 is almost mythical. And his next moves proved he wasn't playing small. One day he was reading a book by Dan Fujita, the man who brought McDonald's to Japan. The book said something that struck with him deeply, and the quote goes like, big success requires big dreams. And that inspired him and decided he had to meet Fujita in person. He called Fujita's office repeatedly, day after day, but no one returned his call. The long distance phone bills became so expensive that at one point he realized it would be cheaper to just fly to Tokyo. And so did he fly to Tokyo. And when Fujita finally agreed to meet this persistent teenager, Sun asked him one question, just one question: what business should I go into? And Fujita gave him one answer: computers. That single word became the axis of his life. He left for the United States and enrolled at the University of California in Berkeley, where he studied economics and computer science. He was so obsessed with efficiency, with doing more in less time. And he used to say, I want to make $10,000 a month working 5 minutes a day. And he meant it. While still in college, he invented an electronic pocket translator, a device that could convert English words into Japanese speech. He sold the patent to Sharp, a company, for 1.7 million, becoming a millionaire before his 20th birthday. But Sun wasn't interested in being rich. He was obsessed with building. After graduating, he returned to Japan in 1981 with a list of 40 business ideas. He ranked them based on three factors: how long the business would last, whether he could dominate it, and how unique it was. The highest score went to software distribution, a nearly empty market in Japan at that time. And that's how SoftBank was born. The name SoftBank itself was a combination of software and bank, symbolizing Sun's dream of funding and empowering the digital future. He started small, selling floppy disk and software packages out of a tiny office. Within a year, SoftBank was generating over $2 million in monthly sales. But he did not stop there. He saw that the company selling software also needed a place to advertise and connect with the customers. So he started magazines and trade shows, turning SoftBank into Japan's dominant tech market empire by the 1990s. And that was the time the internet arrived, and he was ready. He began investing in early internet companies like Yahoo and E-Trade, and at one point he held stakes in hundreds of startups. And for a brief moment during the dot-com boom, Masayoshi Son's net worth surpassed that of Bill Gates. he was worth nearly $78 billion, making him for a few weeks the richest man in the world. But then the bubble burst. In 2000, the Nasdaq crashed, wiping out trillions of dollars in market value. Sun's fortune collapsed from $78 billion to $8 billion in a single day. The media called him the man who lost the most money in history ever. So shortly after, he got on a plane to China to meet a young English teacher at that time, Jack Ma. He was running a small e-commerce site. He was running Alibaba at that time. Sun didn't understand all the details of the business model, but he saw the talent in him. He invested $20 million without even seeing a business plan. That stake later became worth over $70 billion, the same amount that he lost, and making it the greatest venture capital bet ever in history. And from there, Sun rebuilt SoftBank, and in the mid 2000s, he set his eyes on telecommunication, a sector that was dominated by giants and guarded by the regulators. When Japan's government tried to block his entry into broadband, Sun reportedly told him he would set himself on fire in front of their office if they did not approve his application. His relentlessness paid off. SoftBank became a broadband powerhouse. And then came one of the boldest moves in the business history ever. In 2007, Sun acquired Vodafone Japan for $20 billion and secured an exclusive deal with Japan to sell iPhones in Japan. And that single move transformed SoftBank into one of the country's leading telecom providers and introduced Japan to the smartphone revolution. His ambitions were far from over. He started thinking not in decades but in centuries. He announced a 300-year plan, an idea so long term that even his closest advisors thought he was joking. But in his mind, SoftBank was not just a telecom company or an investment firm. He wanted to invest in the companies that are powered by technology, data, and artificial intelligence. And in 2016, after a 45 minutes meeting with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, he secured $45 billion in funding and launched the SoftBank Vision Fund, a $100 billion venture fund, and that was 4 times larger than any other in history. And he used the Vision Fund to invest deeply in companies like Uber, WeWork, DoorDash, and Nvidia. And not all of those bets paid off as he expected. And one of the most painful stories that he shared most of the times is Nvidia, the company now powering the AI revolution. But years before Nvidia became the trillion-dollar company it is today, SoftBank has invested nearly $4 billion, owning close to 5% of the company. But soon after, he realized Nvidia is not moving that fast at that time, and he sold entire stake just a few years later. And it was one of the rare cases for him that he played very safe, and he admitted that it still haunts him. If SoftBank had held only those shares, that would be worth over 100 billion today. It was one of the few times Sun publicly showed regret, calling it one of the biggest mistakes of his career. Still, he regrets, and he once quoted, "If you want to make a difference, you have to be a little crazy." And of course, his critics called him reckless. When WeWork imploded in 2019, SoftBank lost over $10 billion, and reporters declared the end of his tenure. But once again, he didn't care. He had been through the bigger storms. "I hope to be remembered," is what he said, "as the crazy guy who will bet on the future." And those bets are still unfolding. SoftBank once owned Boston Dynamics, the company behind the viral robot dogs and humanoids. He calls his philosophy time machine management, the idea of studying the future in one part of the world and bringing it home before anyone else sees it coming. And that philosophy built an empire from nothing, guided by a man who once lived in a pig pen and dreamed of trillion-dollar companies. Today, he stands as one of the most fascinating figures in modern capitalism, a man who's lost more money than anyone alive, yet still sees himself as just getting started. His life proves the vision and madness are often two sides of the same coin. I don't want to be just a businessman, is what he said. I want to be the crazy guy who changed the world. And because once you have lost everything, you are finally free to bet on anything. If you really like the story of Masayoshi Son and how he has built SoftBank, let me know your thoughts in the comments and subscribe my channel for more tech talks around how to build the companies that are changing the world.